Reggae stars were never the same after this 1977 tour. I found the hidden backstage tapes that reveal how one man's secret mission in Britain rewrote music history. Stay until the end to hear the explosive, unaired interview that explains why this tour was officially silenced. In Kingston, before his name carried weight in foreign newspapers, he had walked into the sound system scene with the audacity to wear dreadlocks in an era when Rastas were branded outcasts. Like a living contradiction to society's fear and fascination, he aligned himself with the teachings of Leonard Howell, the first Rasta elder whose philosophies shaped entire communities. When Big Youth began chanting verses that merged Rastafari, street life, and unapologetic truth-telling, Kingston selectors discovered they were no longer spinning for dancers alone. They were now witnesses to an emerging prophet, whose energy felt more volcanic than musical. Before the United Kingdom ever felt his thunder, Jamaica had already learned to tremble beneath it. Throughout the early 1970s, Big Youth dominated dances with his towering presence, chanting social warnings in patois sharpened by real danger. His breakout moment arrived when he voiced S90 Skank, turning a motorcycle anthem into a cultural phenomenon. By the time he released Screaming Target in 1972, a masterpiece that overshadowed U-Roy's earlier triumphs, Big Youth stood at the center of a revolution he didn't ask permission to lead. He was the one daring enough to suggest that reggae was not merely rhythm, it was testimony. It was a living archive of the ghetto's heartbeat. It was Rastafari given amplification, and he insisted boldly that even the Wailers found courage for their dreadlocks after watching him live the message without compromise. Meanwhile, thousands of miles northwest across the Atlantic, the children of the Windrush generation were wrestling with a kind of exile that had no name. Their parents had built new lives in the factories, on the buses, in the back-breaking jobs Britain offered after the war. But their children raised between cultures, navigating classrooms where their accents were mocked, and streets where police suspicion followed them, hungered for something that explained who they were. Imported reggae records filled that void partly. The bass lines carried warmth from the islands. The melodies hinted at home. But those songs rarely described the gritty details of Kingston's alleys, the spiritual battles, or the coded language of Rastafari. Caribbean youth in London, Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, places shaped by both hope and hostility, longed for a storyteller who spoke with the authority of lived experience. They found that voice in Big Youth well before the man himself ever walked their soil. His records reached them like secret messages. Long before his tour, long before Virgin Records placed their bet on him, British youth were memorizing his lines, feeling the sharp edges of his chants, discovering that militancy could be poetic and spiritual all at once. When natty cultural dread landed in Britain in 1976 under Children Records, its success wasn't random. It was a confirmation that Big Youth had already become a cultural elder to a community he had never met. Virgin saw the numbers, felt the tremors, and arranged a tour for 1977. Not realizing they were inviting a tidal wave into their country. The anticipation leading up to his arrival felt like weather gathering. Promoters felt it. Journalists felt it. Record shops felt it. But it was the youth, the ones who hung out inside cold estate stairwells, trading sound system cassettes, who sensed that this tour would not be just another concert series. When Big Youth finally stepped off the plane, dreadlocks flowing, charisma crackling off him like static, Britain may as well have taken a collective breath. He toured with Brown as his opener, supported by a professional band organized through Joe Gibbs, and everywhere he went, venues sold out so fast that cities felt as though they were trying to outrun each other just for a chance to witness him. London crowds roared before he even touched the microphone. Birmingham shook under the rhythm of his entrance. Every city he entered transformed the night into a ceremony. There was something different about the way he carried himself. Bob and Marcia had charmed audiences with melody. Toots and the Maytals had electrified them with soul. Owen Gray had given them early reggae elegance. But Big Youth? He arrived like a Rasta general, descending upon hostile territory with a message that could not be softened. His dreadlocks stretched past his shoulders like ancient roots, dragging stories behind him. The gemstones in his teeth flashed like coded signals. His movements on stage were half sermon, half dance, and all conviction. British audiences had never seen a reggae figure embody the dual roles of preacher and warrior so completely. On September 9, 1977, the Rainbow Theatre in London became the epicenter of a cultural collision that historians still revisit. Punk kids, many of whom were navigating Britain's economic despair, unemployment, and political disillusionment, crowded into the venue alongside Caribbean youths, hungry for representation. When Big Youth began chanting, the air vibrated with something beyond music. Johnny Rotten stood among them, transfixed by the spectacle. After the show, he went backstage, eager for photographs with the man who had just redefined radical performance. Those images would later symbolize the underexplored link between reggae's militancy and the punk ethos of rebellion. But the true aftershocks of that tour were felt not on the stage, but in the minds of Britain's musicians. Dennis Bovell, founder of the pioneering band Matumbi and a visionary architect of Lovers Rock, watched Big Youth's performances and recognized instantly that this was more than entertainment. It was political literacy wrapped in rhythm. Bovell realized reggae could carry sharper messages, heavier truths. He began adjusting his creative direction, laying the foundations for roots-centric production styles that carried both softness and fire. Big Youth's conversational militancy awakened others too. Poet Linton Kwesi Johnson, whose words would soon ignite debates about race and class, found new inspiration in the Jamaican Toaster's boldness. His collaboration with Bovell on the Dread Beaten Blood album in 1978, an album that helped birth dub poetry, was a direct descendant of the spark Big Youth carried with him. Meanwhile, members of Steel Pulse were paying close attention. Before the tour, they had admired him from afar, perceiving his fearlessness as both a mirror and a challenge. David Hines later admitted that Big Youth's unapologetic Rasta stance gave them courage not only to grow dreadlocks in a society ready to demonize them, but to sharpen their political voice. The fiery energy that charges songs like Ku Klux Klan was an echo of the revolution Big Youth modeled. Yet, even these seismic shifts in Britain's bands were only a fraction of the tour's impact. The transformation that shook the UK sound system culture remains one of the most enduring legacies of Big Youth's visit. Until then, sound systems in Britain mostly focused on selectors spinning rare Jamaican vinyl while occasionally making brief announcements on the microphone. But Big Youth embodied a new paradigm. The Toaster not as commentator, but as star. A lyrical warrior, delivering spiritual messages, social critique, and rhythmic storytelling. Josh Shaka absorbed this shift almost instantly. His performances, already spiritually intense, evolved into something even more electrifying. His signature Zulu dances, his chants, his call and response rituals with audiences all began to mirror the energy he witnessed during the Big Youth wave. Suddenly, a new archetype emerged in the British sound system arena. The militant Rasta Toaster guiding the crowd like a conductor of cultural awakening. Then came Saxon Studio International. Operating out of Lewisham in South London, Saxon embraced the idea of nurturing a team of young toasters: Tipper Erie, Smiley Culture, Papa Levi, Maxi Priest, each one sharpening their lyrical weapons in frontline sound clashes. Saxon's rise to dominance throughout the 1980s, winning clashes across England, expanding into international territory, and influencing global dancehall evolution, can be traced directly to the developmental earthquake Big Youth triggered. For Caribbean youth in Britain, those born in cold cities far away from the warmth of their parents' memories, Big Youth's tour was a reclamation ceremony. His radicalism validated their frustration. His spirituality gave structure to their yearning. His swagger offered a blueprint for cultural pride. They no longer felt like children caught between two realities. Suddenly, they belonged to a lineage that felt powerful. And white youth responded too. The rawness, the energy, the sense of rebellion against stale British norms, all resonated deeply within the punk community. The cultural exchange flowing from that night at the Rainbow Theatre and from the tour as a whole helped tear down barriers, forming bridges that would later influence collaborations, festivals, and the intertwined history of punk and reggae movements. As the 1970s closed, Britain's reggae landscape bore almost no resemblance to what it had been before September 1977. The grassroots revolution that followed, new sound systems, new lyrical formats, new ways of expressing Black identity, new punk reggae crossovers can be traced back to the image of a tall Rasta figure, chanting like fire incarnate on British stages. Big Youth didn't set out to become the architect of a new British reggae consciousness, but he became one anyway, fueled by spiritual conviction and the certainty that music could not remain gentle in a world that demanded courage. Everything Britain gained from that tour, the militancy of Steel Pulse, the dub poetic sharpness of Linton Kwesi Johnson, the sonic sermons of Josh Shaka, the lyrical fireworks of Saxon, the punk reggae alliance, the rediscovery of Caribbean identity among Windrush descendants sprang from a man who refused to dim his fire. Thus, when historians speak about the evolution of reggae in Britain, they usually mention migration, economics, and social change. But beneath those narratives lies a moment, a tour, where a single artist transformed a foreign landscape into a field ready for spiritual planting. Big Youth brought not only music, he brought the roar of Kingston streets, the thunder of Rastafari philosophy, the rhythm of survival, and the electricity of rebellion. His 1977 tour was not an event. It was an awakening. And its echoes continue to hum beneath every UK sound system speaker, every dub poet's breath, every militant roots chorus, and every corner of British reggae culture that still carries the voltage he unleashed. Now you know how the scene was truly changed. Which British sound system or artist do you think was influenced the most by this era? Debate the tour's real legacy in the comments below. Follow for more stories of the tours that reshaped music from the shadows.